It seems the One Piece fans have actually enjoyed the first season of the live action.
Indeed. Casting Jack Black as Jack Walt was definitely the right call.
However, I've heard some people aren't happy with certain choices that we made for Bubba. The streets have not been safe with Corden in the role.
Very true. These are worrisome times, especially with the manga being peak fiction at the moment.
Correct. It would be wise to remove him immediately from the series and replace him with a new casting choice. I believe that the time has come for a great cleansing.
Hey guys, I'm shooting this ahead of time in rehearsal because I got a feeling I'm not going to be able to make it through it.
What's up guys? I know you're probably wondering where the fuck I've been recently, and to that I say I've been training in the mountains and working hard on some amazing content for you all. We've just got some huge news on Netflix's One Piece live action, and season 2 has officially been announced for the Grand Line Saga. I for one am chuffed. And you should be too, as this is where some of the best characters and arcs reside. For any of you who read the manga, you'd know that the Grand Line is where One Piece gets serious. The series goes from being a PG to a 12A real quick. Some of the deaths and reveals in this part of the story are not for the faint of heart, and I'm so excited to see how things are carried over into a live action setting. We've got an awful lot to cover, so I'm not gonna dilly-dally and I'm just gonna jump straight into things. I first wanted to discuss the big news that James Corden has been kicked from the role of Bubba due to worldwide hatred and backlash from fans. I know many of you believe I've been paid off from Netflix when I say this, but I actually thought Corden's performance in season 1 was decent. I really liked his chemistry with Keanu, and I definitely will be missing him when season 2 officially airs. With that being said, I am excited with who's playing him now. Of course, being none other than Peter Kay, who I'm sure fans will love and appreciate on screen. Peter is sure to have great chemistry with the rest of the crew, and I'm interested to see his interactions in season 2, especially when he becomes shredded.
It's like a childish dream come true to be
Bubba Mailer.
Much like my first video regarding the live action, I will be discussing the casting choices made from Netflix themselves, seeing as to who they've cast for this long-awaited season 2. The first season, of course, gave a fantastic introduction to the main cast, having 8 episodes that each lasted an hour. This formula worked very well for the East Blue. However, in the Grand Line, Netflix needed to make some adjustments for the changes in pacing and narrative. This means that for season 2 of the live action, Netflix went with 12 one-hour episodes instead, as they decided to cover the entire Grand Line in just one season. I have nothing wrong with this in complete honesty, as season 1 was already so goated. I just hope that the story for this saga is properly translated and adapted in a respectable way. I think it's now time, however, to move on to the casting list of this season, and I'm going to be covering things in chronological order. Starting off with, let's begin with the very first character introduced into the Grand Line, and the absolute GOAT, Bear Jokes. I think we all know that someone who was actually quite funny had to play the clown-like character, and fans gave much speculation over who could possibly do the GOAT justice. Many suggested Toby Jones for the character, a fine idea for sure, though I personally felt that he didn't actually capture the essence of Bear Jokes very well. Also, no offense to Mr. Jones, but I felt like in certain combat-focused scenes, he wouldn't have been able to shine as well as who Netflix actually cast. Of course, we're getting the legendary Mike Myers as Bear Jokes, a solid actor for a solid character.
I want you.
Mike easily has the skills to pay the metaphorical bills, and I'm sure fans will actually rather enjoy his performance throughout the Grand Line. I'm personally so excited, and I sure hope nothing bad happens to him in the future. Speaking of Michael Myers, I think we got no choice but to discuss the GOAT Vivian Lockhart, and who will be playing her.
I'll see you in hell.
That's right, Jamie Lee Curtis will be taking up the spot for the first admiral introduced into the series. Jamie has always been a fan of One Piece, so I think her coming into the live-action series is a great opportunity to show her prowess and knowledge of the show.
Ruby wants me to play.
Yes, you should. You should do it in the second season of Netflix.
Ruby wants me to play that woman.
Actually, the whole internet wants you to do it.
Vivian as a character suits Jamie's style of acting fairly well, and I'm definitely going to be looking forwards as to how she'll perform in the series given her old age. After Vivian Lockhart, the next character who is introduced into the story is of course the realist G. Lamb. Unfortunately, she's going to be mostly CGI in the live action and her actual actress won't be covered in this video.
And you don't seem to understand.
However, we do have a different member of the Circus Pirates who is undeniably important to the plot of the story, and that is Strong Susie. Susie's actress would have to be relatively big and muscular, the best option having been to go with Gina Carano, though due to unfortunate controversy we won't be getting her as a live-action Susie. Instead, however, Netflix did their best by casting Emily Blunt to play the circus member. Emily is no stranger to action roles and has played fierce characters in the past with no issues whatsoever. At the same time, Miss Blunt has the capabilities to easily pull off some of the emotional scenes later in Fishman Island and the Red Rose Saga. I do wish we would have got Gina for the role, though I hope Emily's performance can sway me when I actually see her on screen, and I'm still excited nonetheless for a live-action Susie. Next up, we have a character who hasn't appeared in the manga in quite some time. Alexandria Astren. Alexandria, as many should be aware, is quite a goated character, having given Pierre the legendary Tor fruit, as well as being part of Dennis's old crew, the World Dog Pirates. Netflix went ahead and cast an actress who's had quite a bit of experience in playing high-action roles. Carrie-Anne Moss. Carrie, I think, is a great choice for this character, as it pushes her out from her comfort zone a little, whilst also reflecting her background in previously starring in action-packed performances. On top of that, Alexandria has quite a few scenes with James, who is of course played by Keanu Reeves. The chemistry there would be already quite fitting, so I think we shouldn't have any problems with this role, and I'll be looking forwards to her appearance in the Astren Arc.
I was just wondering if you fancied a cheeky Nando's.
Now it's time for the most anticipated character ever. One who's been very forgotten in the manga as of recently, and one who's so incredibly important for every arc ever. Of course, I'm talking about Taya Celeste, the absolute GOAT and the undisputed best warlord ever in the series.
Wrong!
Taya is of course incredibly evil and incredibly psychotic, having killed random civilians for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Because of this, I'm super glad Netflix went with the same type of casting they did for Jiraiya, finding someone who is genuinely evil in real life for this role. Netflix decided to go with Megan Fox to play Taya. Megan Fox is an actress who's played a large number of already bloodied characters in movies, so Taya should be no different with her devil fruit controlling blood itself. I've never watched a Megan Fox movie, so I have no idea on her acting capabilities, but I'm sure she'll do fine.
Whose blood you drinking?
Just one.
Just one. It's a Megan Fox's blood.
Okay, I'm sure you're all wondering when I'd mentioned this character and who would play them. Fans have all been asking themselves, who's going to be taking the liberty of playing such a beloved role, and here it is. Bob Odenkirk is indeed going to be appearing as the GOAT himself, Paul Badman. Bob is absolutely the best person to play Mr. Badman, and he could fit straight in as a hollow employee. Netflix obviously went with the meme associated with this character over everything else, many fans comparing Paul to the character of Saul Goodman in the lesser-known media, Breaking Bad. I've personally never heard of the show, though I've met people who've said that Bob can play a nice blend between serious and comedy. Bob will hopefully carry the same energy in the live-action One Piece, and I'm interested to see how he differs his performance from his part in Breaking Bad. Now, Steeltrack is of course a brilliant arc with a lot of brilliant characters, but we have to remember that there's also a couple characters who just elevate beyond new levels in this arc. Bubba will of course have his goated moment where he sacrifices his arm against Dakota Kai. But who will play the Navy Commodore, you ask? Well, not somebody you'd actually expect.
Wait.
Yes, believe it or not, Sting has ended up playing the Navy Commodore, which has made most One Piece fans confused. Dakota is a large and imposing threat, being middle-aged whilst being grizzled in appearance. Sting, on the other hand, is nearly double the age of Dakota, being 72 years old. I'm really not sure what Netflix were doing here, but I guess we'll just have to see if he's any good as the Navy official. Now, moving on to yet another legend and a huge icon in the Steeltrack Arc, Owen Wilson skins. We knew about this character since Johnny's debut, having hinted at the existence of his son in his introduction.
What's a fella got to do around here to get some apple juice?
Of course, we know about Johnny's actor being Woody Harrelson, which can only mean one thing for who Owen Wilson skins is being played by.
I would just like to listen to him kind of hold court.
Yeah.
And there's just nobody funnier to me.
Yes, that's right. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to take up the role of Owen and become Johnny's son. Fans worldwide are sure to love this cast, as you can't go wrong with a bit of Dwayne J, and he looks exactly like the character already. I could totally see this casting going well with the actress who plays Tara Bones, Netflix going with the popular fan cast, Miriam Margolyes. I personally could see these two being great bounty hunters, and I can already sense the chemistry between them. Now it's of course finally time to cover the most requested and thought about character in the Grand Line. The GOAT, Stranger. Unironically, Stranger is a very important guy, having been super important in the fight against Oppen, and being a previous Emperor of the Seas. I'm happy to announce that Andy Serkis will be playing the GOAT Merchant, solidifying Stranger as a Hood classic role. Andy Serkis is very famous for playing not only CGI parts, but very mysterious characters, and I think he'd lend himself well to the role of Buggy. He won't have to have his face shown for much of the series, as the character tends to be hidden under a cloak, though I'm personally excited to hear Andy's voice in the show. And at last, it's time to talk about both Wilfred and Apollo.
Oh, I think you like playing God. The God.
Willem Dafoe is the only real answer to who could be playing Wilfred. I mean, there's pretty much nobody else who could pull it off. I saw a few leaks a couple months back that suggested Sam Elliott was going to be playing Wilfred. Whilst I don't mind Sam Elliott, as he's had experience in similar roles, I think Willem has the acting capabilities to embody the titular Stu Lover in a much better way than Sam ever could. Though who might you ask, is playing the younger version of the character during potentially flashback scenes? Well, Netflix went with the obvious fan choice and casted the GOAT Robert Pattinson for young Wilfred. Robert's similarities to Willem makes this casting almost perfect. I know a lot of fans were wanting Robert to instead play Duck, though I think casting him as young Wilfred was a much better choice in my opinion.
You're fond of me,
Stu.
ain't you?
Drunken in a Virginia fence.
I seen it. You're fond of me.
Stu.
Say it. Say it. Say it.
I don't have to say nothing.
Danny!
Now some of you might have realized. Wait a second, Big 44 didn't at all mention Apollo when he said that he would. Well, if you know your One Piece lore, you'd know that Apollo's voice is pretty much the same as Honua's, and in order to save budget, her actress will play the role of both characters. Now who might be playing the role of the Emperor? Well, you'll have to wait until we get onto the Gulls Edge Arc. Well, as many predicted, Honua is indeed played by Ollie Carvalho, a Hawaiian actress who is famous for her role in Moana as the main character, Moana. To be real, I don't know if she's actually a great actress for this part, though I suppose Netflix couldn't find any lesser-known actresses for the role. I hope she can actually play a bit of a sterner character, as opposed to her usual Disney roles, and do the Emperor justice. Also, while we're here, I just wanted to say that Pamela Odens is played by Kelly Hu, another Hawaiian actress who I feel Netflix did a decent job with, as both her and Ollie look fairly similar, which makes sense with the lore. Troy Greger is a huge hit among fans, meaning that Netflix had no choice but to do this character justice through the live action. There's of course plenty of actors who could play the role of the Vice Admiral, but not many can be better than who they chose for this villain. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is someone who many fans have been begging Netflix to include into the live action, and to be honest, his role being to play Troy Greger is kind of fitting. Jeffrey has a lot of experience playing villainous types of characters, whilst also having the opposing presence that fits with Troy's style. I think this role will also serve as a good note for how terrifying the admirals can actually be, considering how big a threat they are to the pirate world.
'Cause you are about to shit your pants.
Moving on from one great villain to the next, we have to discuss the casting choices made when it comes to Salem Jones. Salem, of course, needs no explanation as to how cold he is, having pulled up to Philly Ford to get the smoke against the Navy. Hugo Weaving was Netflix's choice when casting Salem, and I'm not at all bothered by it. Of course, Hugo's body type isn't that convincing for Salem, though of course there could always be some prosthetics, and even a bodysuit if necessary. Hugo, as far as acting is considered, is a pretty good shout for Salem as he has experience in playing villains already. Of course, Salem doesn't just have one casting, due to his 3 heads, each of them having separate personalities, and Netflix had to cast multiple people for this role. Cersei is apparently going to be played by Margot Robbie, and to be honest, I really think they could have put anyone here. I'm surprised that Netflix went with such a high-budget actress for such a small role in the grand scheme of things, though it's a good addition nonetheless. And of course, we then have to talk about Sonny, who was played by my favorite actor ever.
Dropping laugh emojis like they hyenas. They are my ego, man, you're not well. She a bombshell, but got red flags like it's Minesweeper. That's what I build next time, got my skill set. They don't want peace, they be shank, never film.
Let's be honest, nobody saw this coming, though I for one am absolutely thrilled that Rustage gets to play this character. Sonny, much like Cersei, has essentially no role, other than being a tool for Salem to possess multiple devil fruits. Despite this though, I'm still majorly excited for how they all act together in the live-action series, and I can't wait to see Salem appear in the Gulls Edge Arc.
Oh shit! Jesus, is that you?
Manny has to be one of my favorite characters of all time in the series. He's constantly saved the Myth's lives on multiple occasions, and of course it all starts here at Gulls Edge. Netflix had a good number of choices to go with for the GOAT, many fans asking whether or not Joseph Gordon-Levitt would play him. While that fan cast is pretty good, Netflix's choice to make Manny have overall darker skin fits with his original manga design. Avon Jogia is going to be playing the healer of the Myth Pirates and one of the splits to Jesus. Avon, in complete honesty, looks pretty much identical to Manny. I mean, he is literally Jesus incarnate. The only issue I have with this casting is that I'm not at all familiar with his previous work, and I have no idea whether or not he's actually a good actor for the role. I hope he manages to deliver the character nicely and put respect on the fishing master. Now it's time for the youngest boy. Young Boy Old, of the Pillars of Media. Young Boy Old is one of the most important characters introduced in the Grand Line, going on to create a large farming organization which has become a staple in the New World story. In conjunction with that, the Young Boy Old banks are incredibly influential in the story going forwards, shaping the economy of the One Piece world. Netflix had completely no choice when picking for the cast of this character, Christopher Mintz-Plasse being the easiest fit to embody the role. Christopher has a very young, but very old face at the same time, making him easily recognizable amongst the cast. I think this role in particular will give Plasse a unique challenge in playing a partial villain for the Grand Line saga, and I'm very excited to see what he has to offer.
Nah, that's not me. Act like a waste man, that's not me. Sex any girl, nah, that's not me. Lips any girl, nah, that's not me. Yeah, I used to wait.
Moving into Soojorah, we have one of the best characters ever. Someone who's done nothing but good for the Myth Pirates, training them in the ways of hockey and being their mentor throughout most of the series. Danis has always been a fan-favorite character, and for good reason too. Netflix understood the impact and importance of such a character, and went all out on casting an actor who could properly fit the role of both a teacher and a fighter. Fans were completely correct on the assumption that Tom Hardy would take up the part, and I think Netflix did a superb job with this one. Tom should, and most likely will, be able to switch his accent to fit Dana's easily, and Tom can of course get in shape for the part as he has done with many other roles. I can't see this role going very wrong, and I'm really looking forwards to this casting in particular.
Thank you for inviting me and, oh great Netflix elders. I was just wondering, what other characters do we really need to include from the Soojorah Arc, besides Danis? I know that a few people really love this part of the Grand Line, though it's not that much of a fan favorite. Most of what everybody remembers is to do with Miles's death and Danis's training. Finding more actors for this island would be kinda long, and our casting team is already over budget. I propose that we move on to a different island and change the script of Soojorah so that most of the island can be skipped. I understand that we might be pissing off the fan base by doing this, but given how we've blessed the fans so much by casting Willem Dafoe, I think we've earned ourselves a bit of a break. Of course, this decision is not mine to make, and it's completely up to you five.
Yeah, alright then, let's not bother with Soojorah.
Now entering media, we'll be covering a lot of top-tier characters who I'm sure many fans will love to see. Kaki Sucker is someone whose very presence is threatening, and Netflix will obviously be reliant on CGI in order to create this character in live action. Because of CCS's CGI form, the actor chosen for this role will only be delivering the voice, though that's completely fine by me. Kamala Harris is who Netflix managed to get for this part, possibly based on the fact that Oda admitted that she'd be a great choice for the role. Kamala, being the Vice President of the United States, is of course very busy for filming regulations, though Netflix was still able to get her in for her dialogue in the media arc. I'm certain this role will go down great, and I can totally see her pulling off CCS's iconic voice. CCS is of course an iconic character, though how can we forget about his captain, and one of the 7 warlords, Magnum Dickus. I knew this character was going to be cold, ever since he was hinted at in the Astren Arc, though even still I wasn't expecting this much swag from one guy. The choice for Captain Cock is none other than Matt Berry, who I think was a pretty good cast in all honesty. Matt has countlessly played a number of Rizzy characters and plenty of TV shows, so I think he would fit right in as the media warlord.
Hi, would you like to sample our new set?
No, fuck off. Can't be sidetracked with cheap sex potions.
Matt has a lot of experience with comedic characters, and I can easily see him and Kamala Harris getting along together in their crew. I really can't wait to see him appear in the show, and I have no doubts that he's going to be goated each and every time he's on screen. As hopefully many of you should remember, Magnum is not the only warlord who appears at this point in the story. Chadicus Chadwick is of course going to appear towards the end of the arc, having a short battle with Roscoe before chasing the myth pirates. This means that Netflix will indeed have to cast someone to play him, and they couldn't have done a better job in my opinion. Ryan Gosling will be taking the role of Chadicus, hopefully drawing many fans to the character. I did see some people predict this cast, along with maybe thinking that famous rapper and pop star, Pitbull, would be playing Chadwick.
It's like deja vu, baby.
While Pitbull would have been pretty great, we can't deny that Ryan Gosling is a pretty decent choice for this cast, and I think it would be an interesting part for him to play. I'm excited to see if he can play a bit more of a prideful and villainous role, and only time will tell when Season 2 is released. Moving into yet another warlord for this arc, we got the son of Wilfred, Duck. Duck as a character has virtually done nothing at this point in the series, though we do know that he's apparently joined Davy Jones's crew and will undoubtedly be in the final war saga of One Piece. Duck spends most of his time hidden behind a mask, though Netflix will obviously need to cast some kind of actor to play this part. James Franco seemed like a pretty easy choice for this part, having already played a son to Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin in 2002's Spider-Man. Whilst their chemistry was alright in that movie, I definitely believe that it would be an interesting change for the One Piece cast, having their roles essentially reversed. I think Franco is definitely good enough to pull off a more emotional character such as Duck, and deliver some impactful scenes as the character. Next up, we got Belle D. Hook, who marks the first appearance of a Tontata, as well as being a future crewmate of the Myth Pirates. Belle isn't that important on her introduction in media, though her involvement later in the story is what makes her much more interesting and well-respected.
Yeah, I've got time.
Netflix's decision here for the casting had me doubting at first, though I do understand why they decided to go with Daisy Ridley for this role. Belle is stated in the manga to be British, so it would make sense for Netflix to indeed cast a British actress for this part. I think Ridley can give the same attitude that Belle has during her time on screen, being very annoying at times, though still assisting the crew in some goated ways. I have my doubts with this casting, so I'll need to see it to believe it, but I do hope that Ridley is a good choice for this part. Next up, we got to discuss my guy, Edgy Runner, the realest fella and the most skilled hacker in the series. Edgy, whilst not being a particularly important character in the story, is of course a beloved fan favorite, becoming part of Belle's crew later on in the New World, and helping the Myth Pirates in the battle against Red Rose. Netflix obviously needed to do this character well, so they made sure to pick an actor who has experience in playing a similar role as Edgy already in other media. Brian Deckard is the only pick for Edgy that we needed, having already played a key role in the sci-fi video game Detroit Become Tontata. I think this is a pretty good cast for Edgy, as Brian is a good enough actor to deliver his comedic aspects, as well as his sometimes serious and cold nature. Overall, I'm happy to see Brian pull up into this cast, and have him play the GOAT Edgy D Runner. Roscoe or Punk is by far one of the most impactful and fire characters in the story, having been a huge assist in the battle with Red Rose and attack on Anisa's lobby. Roscoe's design obviously hails from punk rock, her title literally being the Rocker Queen. Due to this, Netflix would require an actress who could successfully embody the punk look, whilst still being able to actually act. Kristen Ritter, better known as the actress who plays Jessica Jones and some other characters, will be playing Roscoe in the media arc. Kristen is a pretty experienced actress when it comes to both comical and serious roles, and I think she could really pull off some of the more important scenes that Roscoe has to offer. This role is something that Kristen is yet to cover in her career, and I think it would make for a good subversion of expectations for the actress, as well as bringing her new fans after this role. Miles's death is one of the most important parts of the New World, leaving the Myth Pirates pretty vulnerable and kinda fucked for most of this arc. If it weren't for the lack of crewmates, the Myths probably wouldn't have taken such a disastrous L against Cypher Pole, and perhaps maybe they could have gotten my guy Manny back a lot sooner. For any of you who've read the manga, you'd know that the Myths do get another crewmate in between this arc and Anisa's lobby, of course being none other than the mother, after eating the human fruit. The mother, otherwise known as Emmy, was obviously played by Julie Kavner in the East Blue. However, as I mentioned in my first video, Julie will no longer be playing the mother after her transformation in the Grand Line, meaning that Netflix will need another actress to fulfill the part.
What do you think about underhanded serves?
I can't do an underhand serve. That's like super like grade school vibes. I was doing a regular serve overhand.
Ice Spice, a very underground rapper, will be delivering her acting debut as Emmy in the One Piece live action. Now many people are a tad bit confused on why the heck Ice Spice has been cast to play Emmy. Well, if you didn't know, when ice melts, it becomes water. Of course, sea kings live in the water, making things all come together. With that bit of lore, it makes sense why Ice Spice was cast for this role. I'm really happy to see Emmy get some love for this part, and I can only thank Netflix for this casting choice.
You fucking up right now. She is such a bad bitch though.
That's right, it's time to go over some honorable mentions with characters that I thought needed some explanation. As I stated in the first video, the mystery of Honourable will not be covered in the live action, as is also the case with the story of the Great Pirate Tournament. We will however be getting to see a select few characters from movie 2, as of course they turn up later in the story in some very important ways. Starting off with none other than Hiroshi Hansai, we got the Chad Tony Leung to play him. As Hordao Island is mostly based of Chinese architecture and culture, it should only be right that a classic Chinese actor should play him. We know Oda didn't write the story for Hordao, though the creator of the movie has gone on record to state that this actor was the inspiration for the character. We should honestly look no further than that, and I think Netflix did well to get Tony in for the role. Speeding through into the next character, we got Zhu Ming, who's played by British actress Jo Brand. Now I know what you're thinking, and before you spam hate comments into this video, I just wanted to let you know that, A, I did not make the casting, and that this is entirely Netflix's fault. And B, she does look exactly like Zhu Ming, you can't deny. I have no idea if Jo will even play the character properly, so therefore I can't make any kind of claims as to how I think she'll do in the live action. I'll be interested to see how they'll do the character's speed in the series, but I won't lie, I'm not excited to see Jo Brand whatsoever in this casting. Lastly, from Hordao we got my guy, Tin, a very important character for the Hordao plot, and someone who even shows up to Pierre's wedding after the time skip. Tin is gonna be played by Ki Hong Lee, an actor whose main role was in the Maze Runner film series a couple years ago. I don't know much about this actor other than that, so I really have no idea what to expect from his performance. If I can say one thing, I think that he could probably pull off the messy look pretty well, and it would be an interesting challenge for the actor to play such a lost and slightly crazy character for once. Overall, there's not much else I'll say about this actor, and I'll be moving on to one of Oda's favorite characters in the series. Navy Pissboy, otherwise known as Pissed on Himself,
City wasn't made for ya,
is a highly loved character by many, being introduced in Steeltrack as a minor villain. However, despite his long absence from the manga and anime, his presence is still felt as much more than just a one-note filler type character. Because of this, they need to of course cast somebody to play this amazing devil fruit user. Netflix have gone ahead and cast the wonderful Jonah Hill to play Pissboy, someone who can undoubtedly play the character to the utmost ability. Jonah Hill is a pretty good actor to play this role, being constantly cast for goofy and silly parts, which is exactly what Pissboy is. We need to see his interactions on screen, and I really hope that Jonah can bring some new life into this otherwise forgotten character. Now last up for the honorable mentions, we have one of the most hated characters in the entire series, someone who's done fuck all after Grand Line, and someone who probably won't ever return in the story.
2 steps ahead. I am always 2 steps ahead.
Yes, of course I am talking about the one and only Adriel Mailer, the character who had so much potential, yet he has ceased to exist at this point in the series. Adriel is quite an important part of Bubba's character arc and transformation, so we'll have to have a look at who plays him in the live action. Dave Bautista is being cast as the bozo Adriel, having the ripped physique that the Fishman carries with him. As for acting capabilities, all Bautista really has to do is act insane at one point, other than that he'll probably get away with some mid-tier acting, and I think he'll be able to play Adriel decently well under Netflix's watch. Now we enter the last part of the video where I talk about one of the best arcs in the Grand Line, that of course being the goated Anisa's Lobby arc. Anisa's Lobby is obviously brought about by the Myth Pirates failing to defend Manny against Cypher Pole, having them bring Manny to the island in order to fuse him with Jesus. So this obviously leads into the question of who will be playing Old Man Jesus as well as the original pre-split counterpart. Well, Netflix have gone ahead and placed Giancarlo Esposito into the role, which makes sense given that the actor was a huge inspiration for the character's design. Giancarlo is typically cast for villains, so many thought that he might play the part of Mickey Hollow instead, though I'm glad Netflix broke the seal with this one and decided to give Giancarlo a breath of fresh air from evil types of characters. I have no doubt that he can deliver Old Man Jesus well, and I'm interested to see how much he'll be in the series. Moving on to the Prime and pre-split Jesus, Netflix went with Carey Payton for this cast. Now a couple people have looked at this and asked themselves who this guy even is. I'll let you know that Carey Payton's most famous role is that of King Ezekiel, who, as many of you might not know, is also a big inspiration for that of Jesus's design. I think it makes sense for Netflix to have done this, as it goes with Oda's design choices for the manga, and I think that both Jesus' castings are not bad in all honesty, and I'm excited to see them both pop up at some point in the show.
Don't flirt with him. I'm not going to...
Now it's time for Reggie, the dog with all the za and all the swag. Like many characters, Reggie and the minks in general will have to be CGI and based in order for them to work, so a large portion of how well he'll be portrayed revolves around the visual aspect of the live action. With that being said, Reggie is going to be played by God himself, Morgan Freeman.
You know? It is, dog. Big up yourself, bruv. You done know.
Morgan does actually sound quite a lot like Reginald if you think about it, and Freeman is not a bad voice actor in sheer honesty. I think it's wise to go with an actor who's also pretty old for this part, as canonically Reggie is quite the aged fella and Freeman definitely embodies that into his voice. I'm excited to see Reggie turn up later in the Grand Line, and it's really a shame that we won't get to see much of him in Series 2. Next up for this arc, we gotta talk about a couple Cypher Pole 1 members that show up in the fight against the Myths. Everybody's been asking if the leaks were true, a very famous actor, and an even more famous character who's so iconic to the series.
On the shop, people with amazing careers who've done amazing things for a very long time. What's your secret?
Well, I joined Cypher Pole 1 and from that I became based.
LeBron James will definitely be playing Bugs D. Bunny. I mean, what else is Netflix gonna do? LeBron is too goated to be cast aside for this show, and the character of Bugs D. Bunny looks just like the athlete to begin with. Now it's unfortunate that Bugs gets murked very quickly after his introduction, and honestly, it makes LeBron's role feel like some sort of cameo instead of a real part. However, with that being said, I'm sure he'll do great in his very small part in this series, and I'm definitely looking forwards to that Cypher Pole fight. I also quickly wanted to mention LSD Rugg and Jaritza, as they're also pretty important characters in this arc. Miss Rugg will be played by Jane Lynch, as many predicted.
You know what I used to eat for lunch? Flour.
Then Jaritza will be played by the GOAT John Cena, for no particular reason other than the fact that I guess Netflix wanted Cena in the cast and didn't know where to put him. Joseph Husk is another important character who I have yet to cover for the live action, the fanbase being rather divided on who should play this admiral. I understand that many are interested by who Netflix are gonna cast for this role, that being John Krasinski, who I think is not a bad choice to be honest. Joseph Husk is typically quite a powerful force in the manga, though I don't massively view Krasinski as that imposing. The face matches decently with Husk's manga design, though I'm not convinced on how he'll play this admiral to be honest. Maybe John will surprise me when the time comes for him to appear on screen, though as of the moment I'm not that thrilled of his appearance, and maybe the fans were right to cast Denzel Washington instead. Now it's of course time for the GOAT Floodgate. Never before has a character been introduced and been this impactful. Floodgate showing up in this arc really made this a top-tier ending to the Grand Line, so Netflix will obviously have to get in an actor who can portray such potent energy on screen. Many fans have suggested and speculated the GOAT Dolph Lundgren, which is exactly who Netflix went ahead and cast, putting Floodgate almost instantly into one of my favorites in this series. I agree with most of the fans about this casting, as Lundgren definitely looks like Floodgate and matches the character's design really well. Dolph has previously played a key part in the Rocky franchise, so he should be up to par with parts that involve a lot of action, meaning that hopefully we'll be getting some top-tier fight scenes with Floodgate. I'm excited to see Dolph pull on up into the series and do bits in this arc.
I order you not to die!
Speaking of Mateus, we gotta discuss this dog and who he's about to be played by. Mateus is arguably one of the most important villains for the Myth Pirates, being very relevant to Anna's character, as well as being obviously a huge part of the Anisa's Lobby arc. Mateus needs to be strong and powerful, much like Floodgate, whilst also being able to act cold and villainously. Mads Mikkelsen, whilst not being my immediate choice for Mateus, is definitely someone who can play a decent villain and show off the character quite well. He and McKenna Grace look pretty much nothing alike, though in fairness Anna's design is meant to look very similar to Skylar anyway. I'm not too concerned with this cast, though I personally don't believe that Mads has the body type to fit this pirate in sheer honesty, but who knows how things will turn out when he's on screen.
とにかくセールスはお断りだからよ。
私はスカイラー・ホワイト。夫はウォルター・ホワイトだからよ。そうよ。夫に全部聞いた。
Now it's time for a highly anticipated character who many are so excited to see on screen. Skylar is a consistently dangerous and mysterious villain, being someone who we still don't know much about even at this point in the manga. She's obviously built up to be a very important villain, and Netflix obviously needed someone pretty decent in order to play this part.
I cried. Yeah.
Yes, as many fans were able to call out, Léa Seydoux was able to make the cut for Netflix's casting, and honestly, I'm not mad about it. Léa tends to play cold and calculated roles, which fits Skylar's character to a T. I think she could probably do quite well as an admiral and a later fleet admiral, so I'm gonna go ahead and say this pick was pretty solid from Netflix. I'm interested to see Skylar's paper abilities being used in the live-action version, and I really hope they do her justice as she's a very slept-on character in the community. And now at last, we got the most dangerous pirate of the new era, and the secret ruler of Elbaf. Mikhail Hollow has been one of my favorite characters since the introduction of the Hollows on Astren, and his appearance on Anisa's lobby just makes him so fucking cold. Now I'm going to be honest, I would have personally put Giancarlo Esposito as Mikhail, though I understand that Netflix went ahead with him as Jesus to make it as accurate as possible with Oda's original design. Instead, however, Netflix have gone ahead and cast the GOAT, Lawrence Fishburne, to pull up as the Hollow instead. Lawrence is an actor who definitely can pull off Mikhail's presence and terrifying aura, whilst also being able to manipulate his voice for roles incredibly well.
Ebola? Let me tell you something about Ebola, baby.
Because of this, I think Lawrence is easily going to be able to impress me with his performance, and I can't wait to see him arrive in this arc and close things off for the series. And that, after everything, is the end of the castings that are in for Season 2 of the One Piece live action. There's a couple actors and actresses in here that I'm really happy about, and others which I could leave behind, though overall I think Netflix have done a decent job with everything, and I'm just happy we're getting a One Piece live action at all. I'm gonna be catching up with the most recent chapters of the manga after this, and I personally can't wait for the final war saga, as it's just round the corner. I'm gonna be making a few more videos after the series is complete, so if you want to stay tuned, then make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video. Other than that, however, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Luffy, it's good to see you, buddy. Luffy!